I'm starting to feel significantly better, but I still have a faint gravelly undertone to my voice. Along with that comes some coughing. I'm going to talk for the next hour, so if there's any hard cuts in this video, you know why. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is To Back or Not to Back. This is the series where we go ahead and take a look at all the active Kickstarters, or a lot of the active Kickstarters, and Game Pound campaigns, and we have a whole bunch of them because last week we didn't have a video. So this week we're playing catch up, and next week we likely won't have a video as well because we're hitting that mid-year lull where we just have an absence of campaigns in the moment, which is fine. It's better for our wallets, not so great for this video series. So next week on Monday there'll be something here. There'll either be a To Back or Not to Back, or something else Kickstarter related. Maybe games I've backed. I will figure it out. I don't know the details. There's always something Kickstarter related every single Monday. And with that, let's go ahead and start this off, starting off with Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a segment where we go ahead and take a look at a available game currently available, Cult of the Now, not Cult of the New, something you can get your hands on now because Kickstarters are full of tons of games which are, well, expensive and hard to get and to count on your FOMO and all those things, and so we try to take a look at a game that you can get at the moment. And this time I'm doing something I don't usually do, which is I'm taking a look at Chronicles of Crime 1400, more specifically a deal of the day from Game Nerds. I tend to avoid deal of the days because by the time you watch this it may no longer be relevant, and also because sometimes by the time you watch this it may be sold out, so it may no longer be relevant in both cases, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But in this case, it's a great price on a solid game, and also because I think it's worth paying attention to Game Nerds' deals of the days. Their deal of the day yesterday was like Starcadia Quest for like $30, which is absolutely insane. You should in general be aware of Game Nerds' deals of the days. Some phenomenal prices on currently available games, often at ridiculous price points. None of the Kickstarter stuff that we normally have to deal with. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into it, starting off the bat with with board game adjacent, starting off with Household from Caen Games, sort of. Not really from Caen, from 2LM Press, I believe, 2LM Press, but in association with Caen. This is basically an RPG. I don't know much about the gameplay itself, past the fact that it's an RPG themed around having a bunch of little people living in a house. Caen's not adding their miniatures to the table, don't know what else they're doing, but they're in some way involved. I get the emails, is what I'm trying to say, and so this is showing up over here, doing fairly well currently at $271,000, 2,225 backers, 3 days to go, so not a lot of time left. This is Household and RPG. That's as far as I'm going to go into it because don't know much about RPGs. From there we have the Bristol Plus, another board game adjacent to here, the Bristol Plus Gaming and Dining Table from Geek and Sun Games. The Bristol Plus coming at 68 backers, £76,000 raised because game tables are not cheap. Geek and Sun just ran a Kickstarter over for the Archie game table over on Kickstarter, and now they're doing one for the Bristol Plus, so different gaming tables, different options, different campaigns available to you. Not heavily going to go through all this. There's a whole bunch of options as far as what you're looking for, how it suits your needs, all those different things, the way to customize it. They have a lot of options. Geek and Sons has a variety of options that you can get your hands on, different types of gaming tables and different types of methodologies or whatnot. You likely can still go ahead and back the Archie and all those things, but that is basically the Bristol Plus over here. From there, let's go ahead and go into cancellations and not funding. And the nice part is we don't actually have any not funding, but we do have a cancellation. We have Kingdoms of Akandia. The Seven Realms was cancelled, unfortunately. This one, even though it did fund, it wasn't hitting what they were hoping it would do, so they decided to take a look back based on feedback, and they're going to be coming back to Kickstarter. They're already putting out updates about, various aspects of the campaign, so you can take a look at the things, voting and stuff. So they're still keeping engaged with the community as they try to rethink exactly how and when they're coming back to Kickstarter, but they are coming back to something, probably Kickstarter, we'll see. And that is our not funding. We don't really have anything in the update section because it's been 2 weeks. Most of those campaigns are over, which means now we're about to dive into the new campaigns, which means water break. Coffee break is always preferred, but listen, I gotta do something semi-healthy when I sound like this. So it's been tea, it's been water, it's been a hard life. I still have coffee, to be very clear. There's no such thing as life without coffee, but there's less coffee than usual. It makes me sad. I'm still playing board games though. Anyways, going into the new campaign, starting off the bat, we have Anunnaki. I still haven't got this one down. Dawn of the Gods relaunch. This is the relaunch campaign coming to you from Cranio Creations. 38 hours to go. 38 backers would be bad. 30 hours to go. 2,882 backers. $202,000. Anunnaki is a relaunch campaign where they brought you cheaper prices with the same gameplay in this 4X Euro game. Don't know much about the core gameplay, coming from the same people who brought you, well, a bunch of the Cranio games, and Golem and Barrage, I believe. So it's coming to you with some solid Euro design heft behind it, as well as obviously from Cranio Creations, who has a lot of Euro design heft behind them, and they're bringing you a 4X Euro game. I'm very compelled by this game without knowing if it's a game for me or not. 4X I've always been wary of, but Cranio Creations, solid company, designers, solid designers. I'm tempted to spite myself, and there's a variety of pledge levels over here for this 4x Euro game, as well as a bunch of things that you may be completely not interested in this game at all and still want to back this campaign. That's why they have a $1 pledge over here for the Cranio add-on store. We'll get to that shortly. But we have 79 euros for the base pledge of Anunnaki if you just want to get base in on the other door, just that's it. Don't want to get all the extras and everything else. Then we have 109 for 1 expansion, we have 134 euro for 2 expansion, and 154 for the all 3 expansions everything campaign. If you get a single expansion, you're already signing up for the deluxe box, the larger box, so a single expansion will already net you that. And there's a bunch of premium upgrades. There's a lot of content and stretch goals. Not all of them are Kickstarter exclusive, so factor it in. There's 2 things to be mindful of here as far as why back on Kickstarter, why not. Off the bat, and we'll get to the upgrades shortly, but off the bat we have the price points over here where you can save anywhere from 28 to 41%, and that matters because 41%, 28% by the time you factor in the fact that there's normal MSRP savings when you buy something online, plus the fact that you're paying for shipping, the 28% savings is not huge. It basically brings it roughly in line with what you can expect to pay at retail, and there's never a guarantee. It might even be cheaper, you find it on sale, down the road, deal of the day at Game Nerds, all that kind of thing. Versus once you get to the core plus 3 expansions, that's a fairly large savings off the MSRP. So where I am with this one right now, and there are some exclusives, we'll get to those shortly, but before you take into account exclusives, based on price point alone, the more you're getting, the more it makes sense to get this on Kickstarter, which is a little unfortunate because it's like, well, if you spend more money, then yeah, you get a better deal, which is, I mean, the way life works, but it's definitely true here. If you're getting just the core game on its own, just based on price point, I'd kind of just wait to retail. If you want everything, I would get this on Kickstarter. That price point, even once you factor in shipping, even once you factor in the standard margins of MSRP, that is a good price point for the game, assuming that MSRP stands true. So time will tell on that one, but as of right now, I'd be inclined to go for that. Additionally, as far as the exclusives and all the extras they have here, they have different kinds of stretch goals they've been unlocking, but only some of them are exclusives, and those are the ones you should care about. Stretch goals that go into all the retail copies of the game, doesn't really matter, it's in everything. But the Kickstarter exclusives, we're going to have the big exclusive big box over here. You'll have, which is the nice thing with that, by the way, is if you get even one expansion, you get the big box, and you can always get the other expansions later and fill out your big box. So even getting a single expansion already gives you more of a reason to go ahead and back it on Kickstarter. Then we have some mana crystals and some upgraded components and some dice over here. Not a ton of exclusive content, enough so that it's definitely on the tempting side, but up to you as far as how much you value those things. Past that, a whole bunch of unlocks, but unlocks as far as all the copies, and that's a different conversation. As far as the other things you can get here, because there are a lot of other things to get, and I'm going to have to scroll down through a ton of stuff. There's a lot of add-ons for a variety of their games, anything from inserts to upgrades, deluxe pieces, all that stuff. You can scroll through here, but we got pieces for Barrage, we have Golem, we have this token upgrade kit. I know I'm going to have to get my hands on that one. Don't know if I care about this, but also €2. Maybe I should. We'll see. We have Lorenzo, a bunch of upgrades. Some of these might be in some of the new editions already. Keep that in mind. They do have a little note. Some of them are already included in the new edition. We have Maharaja upgrades. We have Newton upgrades. Whole bunch of things over here, game related in general, as well as clothing and shirts and all that stuff if you care about those things. But a lot of upgrades for a variety of games that you might be interested over on this Kickstarter. And this ends very, very shortly in 38 hours, which means for you even less. And that's everything Anunnaki, Dawn of the Gods. Should you back it, should you not? Short version is, if you're getting at least one expansion, I think it's already makes sense to kind of back it here. If you're just getting the base game, I'd probably wait for retail, but that's up to you. Will it hold its value? I think so. The price point is fairly good, and there's some exclusives locked behind it as well, and so that's at the higher levels. At the higher levels, I think it's a solid job holding its value. Base pledge, I'm definitely less confident on. From there, we have Warline, design custom maneuvers and craft your path to victory. 186 backers, $22,000, 67 hours to go. Again, another one with a very short time frame to go. Warline is a semi-skirmish game through 3 phases. You're going to go through the phase of scouting out the battlefield, then planting out your outposts, and then actually going through the combat sequencing over here. Core gameplay details I'm not going to heavily get into because I don't know them, but it's basically Warline. This is actually their second launch on Kickstarter, and I only just found out about this last minute because somebody said, hey, can you cover this one? And I was like, sure, I can cover this one. Let's go ahead and cover this one, or semi-cover this one. We have $59 for the Apprentice Pledge over here, and we have $64 for the Early Bird Warmaster. I'd say, I mean, like the 3 backers here are saying, if you're just getting the core pledge over here, I'd probably update the extra $5 to get everything else over there, and $69 for the all-in bundle, but that bundle over there, for $59 is barely worth it. But as far as should you back it, will hold its value, all those things. This one doesn't seem to have enough demand behind it, meaning it falls in the category. With 187 backers total, this one falls in the category of, if you're interested in the game, this might be your only chance to get your hands on it. I don't see this one coming to retail. I mean, they're offering you a $10 saving on MSRP, which is just not a lot, practically speaking. That's wiped out by standard online savings, and of course shipping as well. So price point's not great, unlikely to hold its value, but also might be your only chance to get your hands on the game if you're interested in Warline. From there, we have The Artemis Project Satellites and Commanders, 923 backers, $34,000 raised. This is both a reprint and semi-second edition of the original Artemis Project, minor updates or whatnot to the game, but minor updates to something. There's a second edition. I don't know the exact changes to it. And then we have the Satellites and Commanders expansion as well. So if you're interested in either the Artemis Project, which is a dice placement game, or the expansion, which is an expansion to the dice placement game, then you can get both of those over here. Artemis Project is a game in which you'll be, let's see if we can scroll down and find some images of the map or boards or something situation. They got vague stuff over here. Nope, barely anything I can show you here. It's a dice placement game. It's a dice placement game as you colonize Europa, as you try to place your dice around various things to gather various energy and resources, use those to build buildings, to recruit more people, to fulfill the various missions you're going on. And Satellites and Commanders adds two primary things. That's Satellites and Commanders. Satellites will be, well, Commanders will be a stronger unit that can basically act as a wild unit. It also has an additional strength to it, which can be used to augment your dice when you go places, as well as can move at the end of every round, giving him a lot of flexibility, but you have to upgrade to them, do a little bit more work to get your hands on them. Versus Satellites are going to be these little satellite things, and there are Kickstarter exclusive content over here as far as these are the upgraded bits you'll be getting here as opposed to the retail edition of the game. But Satellites are going to be wandering around the four corners of the board. You'll have different abilities on the four corners, modular abilities, so you can mix up the combination of what you're going to have. It looks like we have 3 of each type, so you have a large, what's it, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, whatever the math is on that, so you can have that many different types of configurations of the satellites, in addition to all the variety that the base game gives you with the buildings and the missions and everything else going on there. But the satellites give you these strong abilities that you can try to place your satellites down as they circle around the board, taking higher and more escalating actions, but players can knock you out as well at the same time, so you want to be mindful of all of that. Overall, I played both the base game and the expansion. I like the expansion. I think it adds lots to the base game. If you like the base game, I highly recommend the expansion. If you don't like the base game, I don't know if the expansion is going to change your mind that much. If you kind of like the base game but want a bit more, the expansion might fit that notch perfectly. Pledge level is going to be $30 for the Satellites and Commanders expansion and $99 for, well, everything, the base game and reprint expansion and all of that. And that is basically going to be, well, that 2 pledge levels there, $30 and $99, plus of course shipping and all of that. Should you back it, will hold its value. Short version is looking at the original Artemis Project looking at the original Artemis Project. The Kickstarter copies did not hold their value great, but they're also not a lot out there. So if you want the Kickstarter content, it kind of falls in this category of looking at the sales prices on them, they didn't really hold their value, but they're not currently available. So if you really want to lock things in, it is safer to get everything here. But as far as, and also again, the expansion is always a tricky one in general. Whenever you're trying to get your hands on exclusive content on an expansion, it's always a bit harder. Meaning if you already have the base game Artemis Project and you just want the expansion, I definitely recommend picking it here if you want that exclusive content. Finding exclusive expansions on the secondhand market without the base game attached are always possible, but significantly harder. So I don't think this is one that's like a safe bet as far as holding its value, but you may still be compelled to get this one here as opposed to waiting for retail, especially if you want that exclusive content and you want to lock in your copy guaranteed. From there we have Heroes of Normandy, Battle for Caen? I watched the video, so I should know how it's pronounced. Heroes of Normandy, the expansion. 1,100 backers, $90,000. This is an opportunity to get both the newest expansion for Heroes of Normandy, as well as the base game, as well as a ton of other content. There's a lot of content for this system out there. There's Battle for Stalingrad, which I still need to play. I've heard good things about it. And then, of course, there's Heroes of Normandy, with all the tons of content for it. And honestly, I watched this video. It kind of makes me want to play the game. The order activation system they have, I don't know if that's standard in the Heroes of Normandy or if that's specifically to this expansion, but you basically have this Heroes of Normandy has classically been the miniatures system without miniatures game. It's got all the metrics and the notes and the details and the stats on all these tiles, but they're all on tiles. They're not on miniatures as you wander around playing this war game, placing your tiles down, creating scenarios, engaging with the universe, the campaign, and there's a ton of content for this game out there. In this case over here, you're placing your markers on your units and you're going to be resolving your activation in order. So you secretly place your markers, and I know you're activating in some situation, but then you activate your one, I activate my one. We go back and forth as we go through this battle sequence, activating our units, going through the campaign, or creating our own campaign for this. This is just more content for Heroes of Normandy. There's tons of Heroes of Normandy content out there, and yes, it fits all within the giant Heroes of Normandy box set and all of that. Base pledge over here is $49 for the Battle for Caen expansion and all unlocked stretch goals, and then Hope and Glory will give you the base game as well, the Heroes of Normandy base game, and then there's all these optional add-on buys as far as getting every single thing you possibly want for this game. There's an absolute ton of content if you want to get it. So yeah, that's basically what's going on over here. Should you back it, should you not? Will it hold its value? A short version for Heroes of Normandy is once you move past the base game, the content they've had for Kickstarter generally doesn't do an amazing job holding its value, but also is hard to track down. Usually if you're interested in it, I do recommend getting on the Kickstarter just to save yourself the hassle of trying to find all the stuff at retail, the extras, the secondhand market. It tends to be a bit of a hassle, but also understand that I'm saying that usually it holds some of its value, but not all of its value. It's a system that's simultaneously in demand enough that it's hard to get your hands on, but not so much in demand that, well, that it holds its value on the secondhand market. So if you want to get it, but all with that caveat of, that. Moving on to Steel Colosseum. 201 backers, $15,000, 8 days to go. Steel Colosseum from Zatu Games, from Nita Cat Games, is a game of robot arena combat. You're going to have robots, you're going to be drafting your specific robots and their teams and their upgrade cards, and then you're going to be going into combat in this robot arena as you take turns playing your activation cards, each with their activation sequence, their number, so you determine the initiative, and then wander around the board trying to take the actions you've programmed. It's got a little bit of a pre-planned for the round programming as you try to sit through how to plan everything out. So not really full programming, but a degree of planning around things, playing your cards and seeing how it all resolves. You're going to be moving your robots, you're going to be attacking potentially, you're going to be seeing if you can actually engage or attack or deal damage, you're going to be trying to upgrade your robots, you're going to be trying to deal with the obstacles in your way, all of that stuff as you go through the game, and then eventually resting and taking all your cards back so you can rinse and repeat the cycle. You're going to have damage on the various sides of your robots, so you're trying to be mindful of breaking through the damage of a robot and then trying to hit that same side, because whenever you hit a side without damage markers, you're going to deal damage to the core system, slowly shutting them down. I had a chance to dive into this on TTS recently, not like before the Kickstarter, like literally 2 days ago. They reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to play it on TTS? And I was like, I can't really cover the game now, but I could play it on TTS and talk about it, am I to back or not to back? Only played one game. It was fun. It was definitely fun. I need more plays to dive into it more, but it heavily reminded me of Robot Quest Arena from Wise Wizard Games, but with much more of a focus on the strategy aspect as opposed to the deck building, a little less of the chaos and the fun cards, but a lot more control and potential strategy. Both of them were solid games that I very much enjoyed. I need more plays with Steel Colosseum, but I did like my experience with it. The prices, on the other hand, coming in at £40 for the base game over here, and then £80 for the deluxe pledge over there. That's going to be a little harder to swallow as far as once you factor in the shipping, the cost of the game, all of that, especially if you want to get those bespoke miniatures and all that. Just it adds up fairly quickly as far as what you're getting over here. The currently with 202 backers is also not a lot of demand over here, which means it falls into the same category as some of these things. A semi-expensive game, not a ton of demand. That lack of demand usually translates into the secondhand market, so this is a game where you can back it, and it might be your best chance of getting the game if you do back it, and it is a fun game, but also it's likely not going to hold its value, and that is Steel Colosseum from Zatu Games. Next up, we have Of Minds and Men Roll and Write Edition. This is our standard roll and write pledge, our print and play specifically. This is not a physical copy of any game. There's no hold its value here. This is just a buying access to a print and play game. 243 backers, $1,600 raised, 9 days to go. This is from somebody who made an app of Mice and Men. Of Minds and Men. Have not played the app, don't know anything about it, but this is the board game version of the app as you wander around, try to collect gems, upgrade your equipment, rinse and repeat in this either 1, 2, 3 player game. I think it's 1 to 3 players, I think. Maybe it was like 1 and bring up to 3 friends. In this 1+ player game, to some degree, of roll and write goodness as you wander around trying to improve your efficiency, score points, all that stuff. Don't know the detailed level of how it plays. The game looks fun, like these many print and play roll and writes look. I'm a big fan of the print and play system, while also not really diving into them because I kind of like things on my shelf. I dove into Voyages. I like Voyages. I just like having things on my shelf, but I do like talking about these 1, 2, 3, or 3 players. See, I was right. 1, 2, or 3, which is a very specific player count. But yeah, that's basically over here. That's going to run you anywhere from like £2 to like £10, depending on how much you want to get. £6, sorry, not £2, euro, not pounds, €2 to €6 to get all the stuff for this game, and that is Of Minds and Men. Next up, we have Blaseball, the card game, over on GameFound from Wayfinder Games. 1,043 backers, £33,000, this time it is pounds, raised, 10 days left to go. This is Blaseball, based on the cultural phenomenon of Blaseball. If you don't know anything about Blaseball, you should check out not Shut Up and Sit Down, but they have another channel where, not really, they have another channel. Quinn's from Shut Up and Sit Down has stuff on another channel that I can't remember the name offhand where he talks about Blaseball. You can check it up, just Google Blaseball and you'll see a picture of Quinn's on some video somewhere, but yeah. I think he runs an entire like Blaseball league. Either way, Blaseball is a fascinating concept. It's basically something that took the internet by storm in this concept of leagues that just random chaos started happening. So one day it's raining blood, the next day you're throwing, I don't know, coffee cups instead of balls. Everything changes and the algorithm changes around it on a regular basis. It's just meant to be emulating a kind of league system, but with the absolute chaos of, well, absolute chaos. That's what's going on with the Blaseball system. They're trying to abstract that down a bit into a 1 versus 1 game in which you're going to have the 2 teams facing off against each other. You're still going to have cards that you play that cause chaos. It is not a CCG game. It's running an LCG model, it looks like, in the sense that you have the base game, you have 2 expansion packs. They plan on releasing more expansion packs, but the expansion packs are all specifically those cards. It's not like, what am I going to get? It's exactly the cards you're going to get. So it's an LCG model. You can't use the term LCG because LCG is a copyrighted term from different Fantasy Flight games, but they're using that kind of system. So, you know, here's the base game, here's 2 expansion packs right now, the boosters, and more content coming later. You're going to be facing off against each other, rolling dice, taking your actions, modifying the game with your cards. Looks like it's trying to lean into the chaos. It won't perfectly be able to replicate that chaos almost inherently, but they're going to do what they can, and we'll see what the final results are. For myself, as much as Blaseball sounds fascinating, I'm not a sports person, even when you insert random, bizarre, crazy stuff into it. Maybe if you put board games into it, that might change it. Either way, the rewards over here is going to be £25 for the base game, or £20 off a £25 MSRP, which practically speaking means, unless there's anything else added here, this is just not the best price point. In general, those things, once you factor in the shipping costs over here, this should be available for cheaper down the road, although with the caveat that right now we're at 1,000 backers, which is definitely something. I am curious to see what the wider retail availability of this will be down the road. I'm curious to see how this one will fare well, down the road. I just don't know how this is going to turn out or what the audience for this is. 1,000 backers is simultaneously a large number for some games, but it's also a small number considering the cultural phenomenon that is Blaseball, if that makes sense. So we're in this middle zone where I just don't know how this game is going to do or what the final support will be. Moving on to The Breach from Ludus Magnus Studio. Water break again. Honestly, my voice is doing totally fine right now, but at any point you get that little tickle and suddenly you're just coughing, and it's not pleasant. Anyways, The Breach from Ludus Magnus Studios, 2,692 backers, $400,000 raised, 10 days to go, and yes to the 14 of you who want to insistently comment, but they have 5 outstanding campaigns. They do have 5 outstanding campaigns, so do a ton of other companies. It doesn't particularly bother me. They have yet to fail to deliver. Doesn't mean that they might fail to deliver. Yeah, absolutely. It can happen, but I've yet to see it happen, so I'm feeling pretty confident. Now, that said, they have at times in the past charged more shipping rates after the fact, after everything closed. They have done that, and I'm not a fan of that. More specifically, they did it before it was cool, meaning they did it before all the shipping stuff completely blew up, before there was more of a reason to do it, and I've always given them flack about that. I like them as a company, big fan of them. Hopefully it's a weird space because they did this, they charged those extra shipping rates at a time when it wasn't okay to do so. They kind of held your games hostage to a degree, and then as time went on, they were now in this new cycle where now it's kind of okay to do it because shipping went crazy. So I don't know how to feel exactly about Ludus Magnus Studios and shipping issues potentially, but I'm not worried about whether you'll get your game. You might have to pay something extra, factor that in just to be mindful. I don't know what will or won't happen. But this is The Breach. That's just a disclaimer because I know I'll get like 7 comments from people whenever I talk about a Ludus Magnus Studio game. I always get like the 7 people who are hardcore against them, and they're like, want to warn everyone away, so I'm doing it for you. I'm saving you the time. There's reasons to be warned away from Ludus Magnus Studio game. I'm just not overly concerned personally. Doesn't mean I'm right, it just means I'm not concerned. But either way, 2,691 backers, The Breach from Ludus Magnus Studio. This is going to be a hacker kind of game. I was hoping to say something more eloquent. It's a game which you're hacking into a corporation. It's not a cooperative experience. It's kind of semi-co-op in what it's doing, actually, in the sense that you're going to be, all the players are separately hacking into a corporation, and you have this artificial grid that's representing the space you're hacking into as you log in with your little hacker dashboards, and you place your avatar representing your hacker in cyberspace, and you log in, and then suddenly the corporation is sending all these systems against you that you and the other players all have to engage with. On your turn, you're going to be drawing cards that will activate the system, so there's a weird balance of putting new negative stuff in play, often in your zones, but then trying to activate them as much as possible to attack your opponents because you're not actually cooperating. The goal here is to try to get your hands on data. You're trying to get data by placing down virus tokens around the central grids, and the bad news is there's not enough data to go around. You all have your different private objectives, you don't show them what they are, but you're all trying to get your hands on the data, and then what happens is, as the data runs out, you only have one resort to get what you need, because if you need that piece of green data and the other players have it, and you can't get it from the corporation anymore, you could try to take down your opponents. You could try to plant viruses on them, and when they disconnect, because players can disconnect from the grid, when a player disconnects from the grid who's been tagged with your virus, you have the opportunity to copy data from them. So it's a game of both getting data from the corporation and from your opponents while being mindful of the systems in play and how they attack all of you over there. That's basically what's going on in The Breach. Combine that with some fantastic miniatures. They're doing a fun little thing with these dual color miniatures with this different aspect where the other players are blue, the avatars yourself are purple, but all of them having a 2-ply or 2-blend kind of color system going on that, yes, you could paint over if you are a painter, and if you're not a painter, it makes it look much more beautiful off the gate. And then you have a core pledge over here for €120 for the base game and all expansions, and then €160 if you want Titan and the Prometheus expansion and all that mixed in. They have a lot of fun things over here, including Zendaya from Overwatch. Definitely not Zendaya from Overwatch, but obviously Zendaya from Overwatch. We have a bunch of cool looking miniatures. These things look incredibly solid. We have coverage. I don't have coverage on the main channel. I do have a short going up today sometime. I have a short review going up on Quack & Co. if you want to check that out. Best and worst of the breach. You can check that out if you want to see my opinion of it. I believe Quacklope has some coverage. Becca Scott has coverage. Mark Street, tons of coverage around the game. And we have a ton of fun things showing up as well. Just, again, both solid miniatures in their own right, as well as shoutouts and callouts to other things. For instance, this guy, Mato, who's definitely not... Zato? Is his name Zato? I think it's Zato, right? That's his name, but definitely not him. Definitely not him. As well as some more stuff in the expansion boxes. We have the Titan Prometheus. This thing is going to look amazing on your table. And then we also have some avatars and some boxes. We have Sister versus Blinks. Blinks, you know, Blinks from, you know, League of Legends and... What was the show called? What was the TV show? The League of Legends TV show. I don't remember what it's called. Whatever it was, that TV show too, but also from League of Legends, the game too first. And then we have this one. This one I don't know. Okay, the Kabuki Knights. What are these? Are these something I just don't recognize? I love the miniature over here, but I don't know. Like, this almost looks like Garrus from Mass Effect, but only vaguely. And his name is Gura, which makes me wonder. Gura, Garrus could be. I don't know if I know who these are, the Kabuki Knights. But either way, that is what's going on as far as all the stuff over here. So a bunch of optional buys, a few pledge levels. Should you back it, should you not? Will it hold its value? All of that stuff. A short version with Ludus Magnus Studio games. Their games generally do hold their value initially. As time goes on, some of them do shift. Because they have amazing miniature production. They have generally solid games. And so their games tend to hold their value. They have Kickstarter exclusive content like this. This Blinks over here, Sister vs. Blinks. That's completely Kickstarter exclusive, as are a lot of the stretch goals, which means their games generally do a good job holding their value, at least initially. Over time, some of them can go down or stabilize. Black Rose Wars is one that I can show you dozens of copies that have held their value just fine, and dozens of copies that have lost some of their value, so it is a bit of a mixed bag in that sense. I would say, if you get this one, do what I usually recommend, which is play it right away, because right away, if you find out if it is or isn't a game for you, you can sell it, and it'll almost certainly hold its value. If you wait, then you may find yourself amongst a bunch of people who just slowly, the interest and the hype of the game dies down when it first comes. I always recommend trying things right away. It's always true, more so true with Ludus Magnus Studios, because some of their games have had more success than others as far as holding their value in the secondhand market. That said, I do think it will mostly hold its value. So then we have Kabuto Sumo, Total Mayhem, and so much more. So much more is true to the point that I am not even trying to do a full dedicated everything on this. There's just way too many configurations to go into. I'm going to talk about the campaign, I'm going to talk about the options, I'm not going to talk about the should you value past a general note about how board game tables campaigns tend to go. 5,700 backers, $3,943,000. This is a 4 expansions for, well, their games. It's an expansion for Kabuto Sumo, an expansion for QE, an expansion for Bytes, and an expansion for On Tour. That's what you have over here. But that's not all, because they have a bunch of other things as well, including options to get bundles to get a bunch of the games, or bundles to get $200 and save a ton of money, comparatively speaking, with the ability to swap things in and out. They're giving you a larger bundle that you can get your hands on, and it's like, oh, hey, you own this? Great, you can swap it in with that. You own this? Swap in a big game with a big game, a medium game with a medium game, and a small game with a small game. I lied, there's just big and small. 2 smalls equal a big equals 2 smalls. You can mix it all in and around, and that would be awesome if I didn't already own all the board game tables games I want to own. You're punishing your hardcore fans, board game tables. Not actually punishing, I don't actually believe in that stuff. Usually I believe that if you're a hardcore fan and you've had their games for a long time, then you've gotten to enjoy their games for a long time. I don't feel punished here at all. But I know some people tend to. I remember that Evadel campaign. Still holds up. Anyways, board game tables. So, basically, the point is that if you don't have all their games, you have the opportunity to swap things in as far as getting those larger bundles and getting a good deal while swapping things in or out, or you can just go ahead and get this new content, the new expansions. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value, it is so hard to answer that here because of the combinations of stuff. What I generally say with board game tables games, which will hold true here as well, is if you want all the stuff that's being offered, Kickstarter is usually a good price point. If you don't want all the stuff that's being offered, it is much trickier. They usually offer some extra, some exclusive, some upgraded everything, and that usually makes it worthwhile, but they also offer good bundle pricing. If you're just here for the QE expansion, it may or may not be worth it to you. It may or may not be worth it. These things, some of them will hold their value in the secondhand market, some of them don't. Again, there's so much content here, and expansion content and base games and bundles, it's hard for me to go into depth. My general opinion would be, if you want a specific bundle and you want all the things, or you can swap them out in a way that gets you what you want, then I recommend it. If you're looking for a specific single thing, the Kickstarter may or may not be right for you. You can decide if you want to get it here, or get it down the road, or get it at your local retail store, or directly from Board Game Tables later. There'll always be options. The only real question is what you're paying, and whether potentially you're in between print runs on any one thing. But that's what we have with Kabuto Sumo, Board Game Tables, 6,000 backers almost, and $400,000. And with that, we move to Batman. Batman, $936,000, which means this thing will cross $1 million. So I hope Chris George, I almost called him Chris Board. Chris George from Room and Board, he's already done a 5 reasons you shouldn't back the Castles of Burgundy, but he has to be ready because there's going to be a 5 reasons you shouldn't back Batman Gotham City Chronicles, as well as a 5 reasons you shouldn't back Arcs, which is about to cross $1 million as well. I'm not saying he will do them. I'm saying that if he doesn't do them, that's a shame, because Room and Board, he tries to tackle those $1 million campaigns, and he's missed 1 or 2 in the past, and I've been disappointed every single time. I look forward to the 5 reasons you shouldn't back these 2 games, Batman and Arcs. We already got Castles of Burgundy, that's great, but I digress. We have 6,100 backers, 12 days to go. Batman Gotham City Chronicles Season 3 and the RPG mixed in together. You have both. If you want the RPG over here, well, that's the board game adjacent category. I don't overly talk about that. There's also Season 3 giving you more content. This is the 3rd time back on Kickstarter for Monolith and the Batman series of games. They had the first Kickstarter did tremendously well. They had the second Kickstarter did tremendously well. They have the 3rd Kickstarter about to cross $1 million, and they are continuously dipping down, giving you more content, more options. They're giving you solo and campaign play, solo and cooperative play in the new expansion. In this over here, we have the solo/co-op mode expansion for those who are looking for a little more ways to dive into this. The Gotham City in Flames, the New Eden, the Batman Computer Files, Anarchy. They're giving you just a ton more content. They're taking a bit of a more. The first season was kind of like boxed approach. The 3rd season is a little bit of a boxed approach, and 2nd season was like, here's a bajillion miniatures, you can buy them all for $7 a piece approach. They all work in different ways, and this one's giving you RPG, a few different bundles, a few ways to get whatever it is you want, including the original base game, and a whole lot of stretch goals slowly being unlocked, and some incredible looking miniatures. Again, this game's been out for a while. You can check out a ton of content from it, both favorable and unfavorable. There's a lot of content out there to get a feel for what this game is, how it does. They're offering an improved rulebook, supposedly, I believe. I think they're offering an improved rulebook. I hope, maybe, possibly, or maybe their improved rulebook wasn't improved. I don't remember. I remember King of Average went on a bit of a rant around it, but I don't remember. I never read it myself. I had the game at one point, and I kind of got rid of it when I heard that to me, the thing that made me lose interest in the game is I heard the optimal way to play the game was to avoid all the fun combat. And I was like, I don't want to avoid all the fun combat. It's Batman. There should be fun combat. And granted, I didn't play it, so I'm just judging based off a review, but I just, the rulebook was also long, and I made a decision. And I stuck with the decision across 3 seasons of not getting more content for this game. But that's basically that. So, should you back it? Should you not? Will it hold its value? All those things. Short answer is yes, with the caveat. Yes, in the sense that if you look at the original Batman campaign, look at these miniatures. They're so nice. They're so, like, I still miss the actual physical production of this game. I don't miss the 3 Calyx cubbies of content space that I freed up so that I can throw in some Zombicide or something, because that's what I'm a sucker for Zombicide. Should you back it? Should you not? Mostly yes, with the caveat that things have been slowly easing out across the campaigns. The first campaign did a tremendous job holding its value, but then the market flooded with it. People can get their hands in it, and then you have the 2nd Kickstarter, now you have the 3rd Kickstarter. Each time the return on value has gone down. It's been stabilizing more and more just because of the frequent access to the content. People are no longer really worried about, can I get my hands in it? They can get their hands in it. It's not a problem. There may be a 4th campaign at some point, who really knows? And so while I do still think this will hold its value, it has definitely been approaching more of a stabilizing point in the secondhand market, as far as one that is not likely to get you more than what you paid, is more likely to get you around what you paid as each season continues. Obviously, that could be, you could have moments of out of print or this or that, or hard to get your hands on. It could absolutely happen either direction, but I think it's likely looking at around par, but still holding its value. That's Batman Gotham City Chronicles, which takes us to Castles of Burgundy Special Edition from Awakened Realms, 1.3 million euros, 11,500 backers. This is one that Chris George Room and Board does have a 5 reasons you should not back the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. I personally can give you, let's take a look 1 second. I can give you a whole lot more than 5 reasons. We have the €95 for the gameplay here. Base game runs you around 50, 60 bucks, something like that, 50 bucks call it. So we have roughly like 63 reasons I can give you. They're all the singular dollar copies of why you might want this version compared to an old version. You could get your hands on the original Castles of Burgundy, a phenomenal game, and it's always been a phenomenal game with or without this deluxe version of the game. Absolutely. It's a great game. It's been my number 2 game of all time without any deluxe copy over here, and you can pick that up for half the price and get it today. Cult of the Now and all of that. Or if you're like me and you love Castles of Burgundy and you're willing to upgrade it, you could get this. Both are true. There's a degree of completely unnecessary over-the-topness to this campaign. You do not need anything that is being shown here. If anything, if you walk away with anything, walk away with the understanding that Castles of Burgundy is a game you should try at some point. It doesn't have to be this version. It could be whatever version. I just think it's a game worth trying at some point. Great game. Cracklope has a deluxe gameplay over on his channel. Cracklow has a deluxe gameplay over on his channel, behind the scenes kind of tabletop style of Will Wheaton that he just put up at Castles of Burgundy if you want to get a feel for it. I'll be streaming a gameplay over on Twitch tomorrow, probably, assuming things go well, so we'll see what happens there. It'll be TTS, Tabletop Simulator, but still diving into it if you want to hang out or all that. But this is basically Castles of Burgundy with a few gameplay options and a whole bunch more to come, we'll see. We have the special edition gameplay all in for €95, giving you the deluxe versions of Castles of Burgundy with all the expansions, with all the upgraded tiles and all this, and giving you the castle miniatures as well. There are probably more miniatures to come. Then for €85, we have the classic pledge with no miniatures, which feels like for the €10, honestly, I almost feel you should get the deluxe edition and just sell the miniatures to someone else down the road who will getting this one, because there's 1,059 people who got this one, and one of those people is going to want to get your hands on those miniatures. You'll be able to get your €10 back, no problem, and or you'll change your mind as well. The difference in price is so minimal, unfortunately. Then we have the Royal Pledge, which gives you sun drop on those miniatures, which is a whole different ballpark, as well as a neoprene mat, which as much as I theoretically want, I don't actually want because I don't actually use neoprene mats, but it does give you acrylic tiles, which are nice. They'll fit nicely into those overlays. Lots of deluxifications happening as far as this campaign, which means we should go ahead and take a look at the campaign. Let's go through it quickly. I have a full review I did on Castles of Burgundy this past week on my channel. You can check that out. Gave it a 5 out of 5. It's been in my collection for 10 years. I love this game. It's my favorite Stefan game, my second favorite game of all time, and that's, again, nothing to do with the special edition. That's just Castles of Burgundy. Then also I did an interview with Marcin from Awakened Realms, just going over the game, including the fact that I'm not making guarantees, but it sure seems like there's more miniatures coming, and some of those have already been unlocked in terms of the Vineyard expansion. That's right, there is a new expansion to the Castles of Burgundy over on GameFound right now, and unfortunately this is where things get a little frustrating, because that you won't be able to get your hands on with the retail edition of the game, not the regular edition of the game, because it only exists for the GameFound version, unfortunately. So that's where you are getting a little bit gameplay locked because of the size of the tiles and the way they're building up the expansion. It's for this version. I apologize. It's not my fault, but I still feel a little bit bad. Anyways, the game, the campaign. Every 2 days they're releasing new things. They already released the vineyards and all that. They already released more information about them, including the tiles. The day 3 vineyards over here, the double layer tiles, as well as a board to hold them all and all that. The board over here, day 5, this is the board to hold all the double layer tiles. Nice little thing. I wonder how the storage stuff, all the storage stuff is a question for me. We'll see. Again, I'm looking forward to this game. I am fully prepared to keep my original Castles of Burgundy if this only adds clutter and mess and harder to table as opposed to all the good stuff. We'll have the vineyards rules be incorporated into the upgraded rulebook. I am happy to see that. I don't like having 14 rulebooks. We have, what else do we have? Just all these things over here. We have bags, we have tiles, vineyard double-sided, we have vine bonus tiles, we have the whole vineyards thing over here, the optional things over there, the upgraded tiles. The game itself is going to have an acrylic overlay where you can slide these pads into the, you can have a ton of pads so you can play symmetrically, asymmetrically, symmetry, whatever it is. Point is, all the various maps that you had in the original game, they're giving them with 4 copies of each so you can play. You can say, hey, we're going to play on this map, but we're all going to play on this map, so we're all playing the exact same game. There's no potential imbalance, but there is the variety. Variety without a lack of balance, in case you're interested in that. I never cared, but honestly, probably will use it. We have all the player boards, all art, production, all that stuff, not really final, all those things. Some art more final than others, some art not final at all. We have the double-sided science tiles that will show you on the back the actual, little listing of the rules in case you forget. You don't have to check the rule book. Again, I'm excited. I'm very excited for this game, but we'll see. Ultimately, time will tell, and I will continuously be watching the campaign, of course, across the course of it. There's 15 days to go, which means even if we do skip a 2-back or not 2-back next week, we'll still have an update the week after in time for the whole thing to close. Should you back it? Should you not? All of that stuff. Short version is yes. I don't see a way not to. I mean, let me take a step back. Sorry, I apologize. That was too blunt. No, it depends on who you are. If you want the Castles of Burgundy because it's a great game and you don't care about deluxifications, don't back this game. If we're talking about should you back it because will it hold its value, will it not? A short answer there is yes. I think this will absolutely hold its value. I have a hard time believing it won't. 11,000 people have backed this campaign and we have 15 days to go. That number, I can't imagine that number being less than 20,000 by the time this campaign is over. This thing will cross €2 million. I am curious what the retail availability will be, which is my biggest question mark. You see, I just don't know what this is going to show up with. I don't know which stores is going to show up. Will Miniature Market have a stripped down copy of this? I just don't know how it plays out. In general, Awakened Realms has had poorly available retail copies even of their standard retail pledge. They have the deluxe pledge, but even the regular retail copies don't show up as much as you might like them to, but that might be different because this is a Ravensburg title. They may have that more of a network than a typical Awakened Realms, so I don't know what will and won't happen as far as the retail availability of this one and what you will and won't get. But as far as all the extras, there will be somebody who wants to pay for it. Whatever you're paying for yours, €95, €149 for the sun drop everything, whatever the final all-in is with whatever miniatures, whatever it is, this is a well-loved enough game that's been around for long enough that somebody will want that copy. Somebody's going to want it. I don't know exactly who, I can't answer that, but somebody is going to want the copy. That's the part I'm not worried about at all, and so yes, this will hold its value. I just have a hard time seeing it not. Time will tell, but yeah, it's a popular game. Popular games with add-ons and exclusive and upgrades, they tend to do just fine. Bark Avenue from Paradise Games. Bark Avenue, 566 backers, $37,000, 16 days to go. Bark Avenue is the competitive dog walking game on the streets of New York City. It's a pick up and deliver route optimization game in which you are walking a bunch of dogs. You're going to be placing dogs down, putting them on various spots on the board, and then you as the dog walker have to wander around, picking up the dogs, combining it with the initial starting dog, and then mixing and matching so you have pairs and sets of up to 3 dogs at a time. They'll be walking around trying to balance their activities, their walking speed, where they're trying to go, where they want to end up. They want to go where they end up, but trying to figure out the paths you're going to take, going through the park or not. All these things as you balance everything about those dogs. Some dogs want to go with other dogs, some dogs don't want to go with others, some will have certain walking speeds or activities they're trying to be mindful of. You're just trying to balance all of that as you try to get these achievements on the left sidebar, these achievements you'll be gaining as you walk a bunch of dogs at once, as you make solo walks, as you do all the activities. You're trying to go through this basically optimization game as the time tracker ticks down along the left-hand side, adding events, adding more tips to the game. It's basically pick up and deliver and route optimization, which is what we said already. Bark Avenue over here, they have a bunch of pledge levels, including all these all-gone pledge levels, although I am curious to see, like, it could well be that if you pay attention to these, some of these will pop back up. There's a whole bunch of pledge levels where people will be able to pay $300 to get their own dog in the game, to get their own dog into Bark Avenue as a drawn dog. And while I tend not to like that much when it comes to like content creators in games, unless it's really well done, really well blended, if I ever show up in a game, I want it to be like subtle enough that you could never have known I was in the game. And like, I've been in a few games, and you may not know I've been in a few games, which is exactly the way I like it. I personally do not like it when a content creator is in a game and it's obvious. To me, it throws off all the immersion. Subtle references or hints or teases, that I'm fine with. And the dogs people, that I couldn't care less about at all. I'm fine with dogs because Shadow and Mifa over here, I happen to know who Mifa is, but that's unrelated. But I'm fine with this kind of situation going on in adding that kind of thing to a game. But either way, should you back it, should you not? Will it hold its value? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the Kickstarter exclusives, because they are only offering the Kickstarter exclusive version on Kickstarter, which I like it when companies do that. Save the 3 people who would back the retail edition when they should just generally get it at retail. That said, the Kickstarter exclusives are on the lighter end, so it's still a bit of a question mark. We have the Bark Avenue Kickstarter edition over here, which gives you the Kickstarter exclusive squishy poop tokens, the bonus event cards, all unlock stretch goals, and the miniatures, which will be sold shortly. I don't know if the miniatures will or won't be in the game. It might come down to how well they fund. So the miniatures, they currently have plans for miniatures as an optional add-on, but it might come down to how well the campaign does, so no guarantees there. But currently you're basically getting the Kickstarter exclusive squishy poop tokens and the bonus event cards. And this game, if it makes its way to retail, 566 backers is enough that it might make its way to retail, but also might not. If the game makes its way to retail, you're probably looking at a cheaper price point, not a guarantee, but especially once you factor in shipping and all that stuff. So the question is, how much do you care about the squishy poop tokens, which are basically like the Evadel berries, but they're poop instead. It's weirdly adorable. I know it's a weird thing to say. That's what I said in my video. I covered the game. It's weirdly adorable, but it does work to have what my kid referred to as chocolate chips on the table. They're not chocolate chips. They're definitely not chocolate chips, but shouldn't eat these either because they're not really edible. But either way, so as far as should you back it, should you not, it kind of depends on what you care about. I think that the extras here are not a ton, but if you want those extras, then that's the price of admission. And the retail, the secondhand market availability on this will be low. Just with 566 backers, the campaign will continue to grow. It might get closer to 800, 900 or so, but you're still looking at a semi-low availability in the secondhand market. So I would say if you want the game and you want those extras, you have to pay that premium. If you're willing to wait and gamble, it might show up in retail, but it is a wait and gamble. So that's always the question mark there. And that is Bark Avenue. As far as holding its value, I'm skeptical that it will. Overall, the price point on the game and for what you're getting, I think it'll be par at best, but I think it's more likely to be a small hit where your $50 copy plus shipping, you might be able to get $35, $40 for, so I think it's one that will less likely to be holding its value. Moving on to Arcs by Leader Games. Arcs, 9,299 backers, $980,000, 15 days to go. Arcs is a fast-playing, tense science fiction game with an innovative campaign. That's just me reading from over here. This is a trick-taking area control game to a degree. Not really full area control, but it's a trick-taking game in which you're using tricks as a mechanism of leading and following. You see, you're going to have your hand of cards. You're going to try to be playing your hand of cards to take the actions, and players can follow that action with a higher number to take control of the action, to lead the action from you, or they can play a face-down card to follow it, or they can play a card face-up to break away from it, which might be important because the balance is always, do you want to take the stronger action, or do you want to alternatively just take an action that is the right action at the right time in the right place. So there's all this balance. It's using trick-taking not as a you have to follow a trick, but as a mechanism to guide the entire otherwise engine of Arcs. There's going to be a campaign mode There's going to be a bunch of things over here. There's going to be the innovative campaign that you can play, the Blighted Reach campaign, where you can go through the epic, story, one episode at a time, going through an epic trilogy that stretches across the larger galaxy. It's basically 3 games, 2 hours a game. You can sit down and play 2 hours at a time, pack it up, come back to it, or play all 6 hours all at once if you want. They currently have a bunch of options to dive into it. They have a print and play, tabletop simulator, tabletop playground, which is a tabletop simulator kind of similar thing, and they also have a bunch of content on the game, from playthroughs to reviews. Thinker Thema did some coverage, Hungry Gamer, Lore of the Board, we have Space Cats, Peace Turtles, a whole bunch of coverage around the game and options to dive into yourself or just look at the other coverage around it. This is another Leader Games game from the same company and people who brought you Root and Oath, and I am both incredibly compelled and incredibly not compelled at the same time. I passed on Oath against my better judgment. I was like, you know what, Oath wasn't pulling me in enough. I love Root, Root's amazing. I passed on Oath because it wasn't pulling me in enough, and I think I'm passing on Arcs. The world is not pulling me in enough. The world is not. The trick-taking actually is. I like the concept of trick-taking. I'm very curious to see how this game does. It may be a game that I regret passing on, but also, and this is where we get to the should you back, should you not, the price point is good but not great. The price point of this one is basically there to guarantee you the availability of the game. You could back this game and you will get your hands on the game. And yes, when this game first lands, it absolutely will hold its value because it's going to be out of print and people are going to regret missing this campaign and people are going to want to get their hands on Arcs. Also, the price point's just not good enough to support the long-term viability of it holding its value. It's more about the short-term viability as people try to get their hands on a game that is hard to get your hands on. We saw this with Oath. We'll see this with Arcs too. If you back this game and you play this game and you find that it's not for you and you do so quickly and you can turn around and sell it. Absolutely. And the price point is not bad, but it's also not good. So there's not a strong incentive to get this game, unless I would say you should get this game if you're going to play it soon. If you're not going to play it soon, just wait for retail. There's no rush. Wait for some sale. Wait for it to show up whenever. If you're not in a rush and you're not going to play it, you just want to get your hands on it, you will be able to get your hands on it. Leader Games does a fantastic job. They have a loyal following, and that means their games are going to be available. You should only be backing this game, in my opinion, either to support the publisher, which is not a bad reason when the price point is actually comparable, but also in case you want to play it right away, in case you have that FOMO, in case you're going to see people playing Arcs, in case you're going to see that Dice Tower 4 squares pop up, and it's like 9, 9, 8, 9, and people are going crazy, and people love the game, and you have FOMO, and now you pay twice the price because you want it now. Then you should back this game. But if you're not in a rush, you can probably wait on it, because the price point over here, $60 over here, $85 MSRP, by the time you factor in shipping, that's basically the same price as getting online, if not worse. Same with the $100, $135. It's the same price, if not worse. $150, $205. That is a better margin, but it's still barely comparable. In general, MSRPs, you're looking at anywhere between 75% or to 80% of an MSRP is a typical online price after the fact. 75% of $205 is $151. So you're basically paying $150 plus you're paying shipping, which means you're not even getting that good a price, if a good price at all, unless you're equating it to the fact that right away, initially, when this game comes out, you will not be able to get your hands on it. That's what it comes down to. So should you back it? Will it hold its value? Yes, it actually will hold its value, at least initially. Over the long term, it won't, but it's also not a particularly great price. So it kind of depends on what your preference is. If you're going to get it anyway, it is supporting the publisher. It's definitely giving them a higher cut than getting it at retail. So that's certainly a good reason, especially when the price is not bad. It's also just not good. And that is Arcs. Room and board, Chris George, when you do your 5 reasons not to back it. First reason is because, well, it's a good price, not a great price. Second reason is because, I don't know. This is not my video. That's his video. He can figure it out. Moving on to 44 BCE, a game of strategy and betrayal. 300 backers, $30,000 raised, 17 days to go. 44 BCE, a shifting one versus many one experience where every single round, one person is becoming the Imperium Maias, and then other players have to sit there and backstab and betray and try to take him over or take over from him. It's a rotating one versus many experience. That's as far as I know about the game. I don't know a lot of details of the game. I did not dive heavily into this one. Just weren't enough people backing this one for me to heavily dive into it. Pledge levels over here are going to be $59 for the base pledge, and then $109 for the Nobilis, and then $539 for the Patrician, and that's a whole different ballpark. We're not even going to talk about that one. Short version for this one is there's not a lot of demand. 300 backers for a $59 base pledge, that usually screams a game that will not hold its value and will not see a heavy retail release after the fact. This is a game that likely will have a loyal but small audience, especially when you factor in like the extra, this is the Emperor Edition over here, that $109 over there. Is that the Emperor Edition? I think it is, I believe so. Yes, that's the Emperor Edition over here. It's basically paying an extra like $60 to get a few miniatures and some extra metal coins. It's just an expensive game. Both the upgrade and the base game are expensive here, which I think is one of the reasons why that you're seeing a low back account. But also, I don't think the game is compelling enough as far as what it's doing, pulling people in off the bat. That one versus many shifting aspect, very compelling, but I don't think they're really hooking people well, and that will translate into the secondhand market. I think this is one that will, if you want to guarantee the game, this is obviously your best chance with a low back account. That's generally the case, but I do not see this one holding its value long term. We have Hacktivity, a highly interactive co-op board game. This one has me intrigued because I actually watched the how to play video, and this is giving me strong, what's the name? Paleo vibes. Paleo is a game I love, and the vibe I'm getting from Hacktivity is that it's giving me a similar puzzly feeling as far as how Paleo plays. I love Paleo, which makes me highly compelled to get this game, even though it falls into the exact same problem as the last game, which is a fairly expensive game, which leads to a low number of backers. I'm compelled despite myself. I hope I don't back it. I hope I don't, because I should have more self-control. We'll see. 327 backers, $22,000, 17 days to go. Hacktivity is a game that comes with 3 pledge levels, which I never love for games that shouldn't. Like, some games have like miniatures and tons of boxes and 14 expansions, and I get multiple pledge levels. Some games feel like they should have gone with 2, standard and deluxe, and they still managed to go with 3. And I think it just further dilutes the pool and makes their job harder too. We have the Hacktivity Basic Edition of the game, and the Hacktivity Deluxe version, Advanced Edition, and the Hacktivity Complete Edition of the game. Let's go through what Hacktivity is. Hacktivity is a co-op game where you basically have to go through the virus deck. You're going to have your own hand of cards, your own decks. The other players are going to have their own decks, and you're trying to pull cards from the virus deck to deal with them, and you're going to either deal with them properly or slowly put them to the general area where you can deal with them together. The problem is you can't communicate, so you're making these constant judgment calls as far as what you can take on, what you can't, what you can go to the general area for other players to help you with, what you can't, and it's a constant balance of making sure you go through the virus deck before the players go through their decks. So it's this constant balance. That's the strong Paleo vibe I'm getting, the idea of a deck of challenges that you're going through. Some are being helped with, some you're dealing with on your own. Similar vibes, although I'm curious to see how this game plays. Lots of positive vibes about it from the people who've covered it so far. The more preview content than review content, which has me a bit on, like, it's channels that do preview content more so than review content, which has me a little bit skeptical, but also I'm curious. I kind of want to dive into this one. I believe they have an online TTS. I might try to play this. I usually say that and then don't actually make time to play them because it's always hard enough to balance my backlog as it is. But yeah, it looks very compelling. I do recommend watching Rado's 5 minutes thoughts on how it plays. Not so much for the review. You can check out, you can go with his opinion or not, but even I'll just give you an idea of how it plays, which I think is, this game looks strongly compelling. I am very interested in it. As far as the advanced edition of the game, you're getting the exclusive player mats, you're getting upgraded Cyberlink tokens and energy tokens, but again, that's going to run you 75 Canadian dollars, $60 US, up from the $50 US for the base game, and the complete edition is giving you the encrypted small expansion, a bunch of extra cards, and then some more upgraded tokens and some storage boxes, and the exclusive sketchbook, which I don't care about at all, but hey, it's part of that over there, or you can get the encrypted small expansion separately entirely. I want this game. I do not think it'll hold its value. In general, again, high price point for a game that does not have a large following, generally does not translate well long term. If you want Hacktivity, it's your best opportunity to get it. Same thing as the other games that are expensive and have a fewer number of backers. That's the general trend. If a game costs a lot of money and there's not a lot of people backing it, there's not a lot of opportunity. If you want to lock in and guarantee your copy, this is what you should be doing. But as far as will it hold its value, I'm just skeptical. Too high a price point with not enough game evidence as far as what the game is doing. I'm compelled by it, but also I do have Paleo and I still haven't played all the modules, so I'm gonna use that as my convincing excuse not to back the game. And there's still an expansion of Paleo, and I don't play the games I love enough. I will have self-control. Maybe. We'll see. Next up, we have Crossroads. 325 backers, $24,000 raised, 26 days to go, and you can already see the pattern here. It's going to be the same thing as the rest. We're walking into a pledge level of €40 for the standard edition of the game, €90 for the Incubators edition with 300 backers. That's where we are already. We'll go into the game a bit more, but it's going to be the exact same conversation as far as should you back it, should you not. If you want to guarantee it, get your hands on it here. Absolutely. Will it hold its value? I'm skeptical. The price point versus what you're getting is just too hard a sell. Crossroads Inn, the Crossroads Inn is based on the video game, the Steam game Crossroads Inn. They're extrapolating it to a board game. They're not extrapolating it. They're making a board game out of the video game. A board game which you're trying to manage different factions of guests as you build out your inns, as you bid on these various tiles. You're trying to gather the tiles, place them in your inn, place them down, be mindful of the various factions, vying for control or influence in them, as you have to basically always make these trade-offs and compromises as you build out your inn, get more money coming in on a recurring basis, get more goods, use those to make your recipes. Available on Tabletop Simulator. They have all the highlights and all those things. It's basically an in-building game. It's a puzzle of a game. I think the art is not compelling enough, and the price point for what it is really makes this one a hard sell. It's probably doing some fun things, but makes it a hard sell. It's Crossroads Inn. I already said everything I need to say about this one. If you're interested in it, by all means, it's here. I just don't see it holding its value. And then moving on, or lastly, there is no moving on. That was the last game, which means it's time for Picks of the Week, which I forgot to do 2 weeks ago when I did this. So it's a good thing we got this now. Picks of the Week. Let's go ahead and dive into this, but water break first. We're doing fairly good on time for the amount of games there are, but we got time. My voice, I'm kind of happy with my voice. I mean, happy is a relative term, but the fact that I didn't spend my time coughing this video is already a step up from some prior videos I've been doing. Tea and honey. Tea and honey. I don't know if it works, but It's tea and honey. It's not coffee. So, picks of the week. Picks of the week generally have two things. I generally do two things. A game that I personally am the most interested in, and a game that is most likely to hold its value. The most interested in personally is an easy one. Castles of Burgundy, absolutely not a question. I love Castles of Burgundy. And I was skeptical of Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars, the big box, I backed it, but I was skeptical. I was 100% prepared to get that game and then get rid of it if it made the game harder to table. But it didn't. It made my Terraforming Mars games more enjoyable, and it did not make it harder to table. And then recently I've been playing Foundations of Rome, which they did a phenomenal job. I hope Awakened Realms takes a look. Please, Marcin, Awakened Realms, please get your hands on a copy of Foundations of Rome and play it, and understand how easy that game is to set up and table, and take notes and apply to Castles of Burgundy. Foundations of Rome takes up an entire calyx, but literally, I pull it off the shelf, I put it down, it is set up and ready to go in 4 minutes. Now, obviously, they're different games. You may not be able to do the same thing, but there are some notes you can take away. For me, the biggest concern with these deluxifications is, does it make the game harder to table or not? But of course, I'm going to try. I'll find out. They can put out a full 100% miniatures version of the game, and I will get it. I might get rid of it, but I'll get it. And if it adds to the value of my experience, if it makes the game more immersive, I love the visual aspect of playing Foundations of Rome and seeing it on the table. I am absolutely all in for Castles of Burgundy. There's not a question. It's just my second favorite game of all time. And my first favorite game, Terraforming Mars, already got a deluxe version. So now we just need Inish to get some ridiculously over-the-top version. Matago, I will back that. You know that, so I'm in for it. But yeah, that is absolutely my personal pick there. Now this is also one that likely will hold its value, but I like picking different things. So to that end, for the one that's most likely to hold its value, I'm actually going to go ahead and go with, where is it? Nope, not this one. I apologize. Anunnaki. Anunnaki, Dawn of the Gods. I think the all-in on this one, specifically the all-in, offers a high enough discount combined with extras that I think that is a relatively safe back, a solid back that will hold its value. You're offering a company that's done great games, designers that have done great games. You're offering a good price compared to MSRP, and you're offering exclusives. Those four things combined offer something that I think the all-in pledge, even with expansions in general, but the all-in pledge especially, is just offering enough of a price point that I think this is my value pick of the week, the one most likely to hold its value. It is a risk. I'm always a little worried when I pick something like this. It's a 4x Euro game. There's always the chance that I'm dead wrong, but I mean, these aren't guarantees, they're guesses. So that's my value pick of the week is Anunnaki, Dawn of the Gods, although honestly, Castles of Burgundy, the Breach, Arcs, a bunch of them will do just fine holding their value as well, especially when combined with short-term availability after the fact. And that is basically everything. As far as upcoming campaigns, we only have one. We have one upcoming campaign launching tomorrow. I believe tomorrow we have RuneScape Kingdoms Shadow of Elvarg from Steamforged Games, 12,000 backers, and that's the only campaign I'm currently interested in as far as the upcoming campaigns. There are more campaigns launching next week, but none that I'm particularly interested. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap. Thank you so much for hanging out, for being here, and for putting up with the gravelly little subtones of Alex Radcliffe. It honestly just works when I do it more naturally. Thanks for being here, and have a good one. I don't even have his joke prepped. See, usually right about now I try to do a joke, but I don't have a joke prepped because I didn't do my tobacco not tobacco last week, and that meant I forgot and I got out of the habit, so my dad joke is not present. I'm trying to think if I have a dad joke offhand, but I don't have a dad joke offhand. I feel bad. It is what it is. Anyways, my week has been fun. This next week is really crazy. I'm prepping for all the stuff. I'm prepping for Origins and the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot is basically Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so I'm going to be offline Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Then I'm going to Origins Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then back home Saturday and back out Sunday, which means I have Tuesday. Next week, this week's going to be crazy because next week I have Tuesday to prepare for everything. I'm in trouble. I am in big trouble. I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, when I'm going to do it, but I am absolutely in trouble. We'll figure it out. There'll be content on the channel every single day. I have not missed a day of content in who knows how long. Sorry for that. And I don't plan it. Until next time, have a good one.